Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we're bringing you part 2 of SAS Rogue Regiment, How to Play. In this video, we'll be going through all 6 phases of play. In the previous video, we provided you the setup and a general overview, so be sure to go back and check that out. But this will be phases 1 through 6, all 6 phases: operator phase, axis phase, event phase, axis patrol phase, axis attack phase, and end phase. Be sure to check the timestamps to skip to the part that you want to see, and let's get started. Once you've set up the board according to the map, and of course this is not any map in existence, this is just the first tile of the first scenario in the base game. But once you have set up your map and you've placed your stealth token at your chosen difficulty setting, then you're ready to begin. During a game of SAS, there are 2 distinct sort of modes of the game. The rule book refers to them as sections. This is the stealth section and the battle section. When you are in the stealth section of the game, Axis forces are largely unaware of the operator's presence, and they'll follow a certain set of behaviors. This also means the event cards will use the stealth section of the event card rather than the battle section. During the stealth section, Axis forces are also governed by their patrol lines and their sentry points. The game generally will start in the stealth section, and yes, I know this is not the correct token for this track. I have apparently misplaced my alarm token for the time being, and rather than spending precious filming time looking for it, we're going to use this SAS token here. The game generally starts in the stealth section, and as the stealth meter fills up, you will eventually hit this final space on the stealth meter, and that's when the game transitions into the battle section. Lots of things affect the speed with which this fills up and reaches the battle section. Generally, though, the stealthier you are, the slower it will fill. Now, earlier I mentioned how there are 6 phases in the game. It should be pointed out that this phase, the Axis Patrol phase, only occurs during the stealth section. So it would be more accurate to say the stealth section of the game has 6 phases, and the battle section only has 5. So the first phase, as we've mentioned, is the operator phase. During this phase, players may move and attack with all of their operators on the board. In the first scenario, you of course only have 1 operator on the board. If you are playing a scenario with multiple operators, the turn order of those operators is decided entirely by the players. It should be made in whatever order is most advantageous to the players. However, it should be noted that an operator must complete their entire turn before another operator can begin theirs. It's also entirely possible for an operator to completely forego their turn and just stay exactly where they are, doing nothing. In fact, often this is an important tactic to get the Axis in the correct position before you make a move. It also should be noted that while an operator can move in any direction, including diagonally, once they finish their movement, they must be facing one of the 4 cardinal directions. In other words, these diagonal dotted lines should be pointing towards one of the corners in the space they're in. On an operator's turn, they have 4 action points. Now, there are quite a few actions you can take, and whether or not you can take an action can be dependent on if you're standing, crouched, or carrying an object. So be sure to keep this quick reference guide nearby, as it makes it very easy to remember, okay, what can I do now that I'm standing? What can I do when I'm crouched, etc. It also lists off the number of action points it takes to do the thing you're wanting to do. An action must be fully completed before another action begins. So let's discuss the various actions. The move action allows the operator to move, as you might have guessed. Moving a single square costs 1 action point. This can be done, as we said, in any direction, including diagonally. The move action is blocked by rocks, water squares, hedges, crates, and high walls. Additionally, the move action cannot be used diagonally through a doorway. So instead, you would have to get directly in front of the doorway and then move into the doorway. The sprint action costs 2 action points. This allows the operator to move 3 squares for just 2 action points, saving them an action point effectively. And these 3 squares do not need to be in a straight line, so 1, 2, 3 would be a perfectly legitimate move. The sprint action is blocked by all the same things we just covered in the move action. And additionally, it cannot be used to move from one forest square to another forest square. But you can run directly into a forest. So for instance, with this sprint action, I could run 1, 2, 3, but I could not, if I started here, I could not go 1, 2, 3. So if this was the square I wanted to end up in, it would be better to go 1, 2, 3. Operators may carry out the climb action point for 2 action points. The climb action allows an operator to move one square in any direction into a square containing either a crate or a hedge. The climb action is also used to climb through a window. The attack action costs 1 action point. When using the attack action, the operator may attack with any weapon in the equipment section of their player board. They simply declare which weapon they are attacking with and roll a d6. The operator may attack any Axis unit within their line of sight and within the range of their weapon. Line of sight is determined by tracing a line from the center of the operator's space to the center of the Axis unit's space. If that line passes through a forest, rocks, high walls, a building, or another Axis unit, then the line of sight is not there. It's blocked and the attack cannot be made. The range of a weapon is found on the operator's board, as we've said, and you can see here. To make a ranged attack, you'll simply nominate your target, so let's say this Axis unit here. Check the range by counting the squares from the attacker to the target, not including the attacker's square. So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, so short range, and then roll a d6. If the result is equal to or higher than the number on the dice symbol on the operator board, and if you remember, the rifle showed a 4, so we have successfully shot that Axis soldier, and we will then remove the Axis soldier from the board and replace it a corpse token. It should also be noted that when you're within short range of the target, you actually add 1 to the result. So this 4 would have been a 5, and so we easily hit him with the rifle. You can also combine the move action with the attack action for a single point as well. As you can see right here on the reference guide, move and attack 1 square, 1 action point. And so the operator could take a step and shoot the soldier, or the operator could shoot the soldier and then take a step. It's important to note, though, that if you are going to use the move and attack action, you are committing to that before you roll the dice. So if I say, all right, I'm going to move and attack, I want to move after I attack, I then roll a die, I get a 1, and so I've missed, I've alerted these soldiers, I then say, nah, never mind, I don't want to move. Too late. You have to move if you're going to use move and attack. So you declare the move and attack. It might be a good idea to go ahead and move as sort of locking in that movement, even if that move technically is going to happen after the attack. The take aim action costs a single action point and allows the operator to nominate a single Axis unit and then add 2 to the die result when they roll it. Operators can use move and attack while aiming at a target, and it should be noted that the +2 is in addition to any range bonus. So with this operator being within short range, that means they're already getting +1, and so now they're getting +2. So if they were using that rifle where they need a 4 or better, that would mean they literally could not miss when attacking that Axis unit. The mark target action costs 2 action points. The operator nominates an Axis unit who does not have to be within line of sight or range when marked. The operator marks the Axis unit with their target token from their operator board. This then allows the operator to make an attack on their marked target during the Axis advance phase, the event phase, or the Axis patrol phase. The target must also be within both range and line of sight when the attack is made. And just like with an aimed attack, you add 2 to the die result when making a attack that is marked. The attack may occur in the middle of an Axis unit's movement, so when this Axis unit moves, say here, at that point before the 4th space, the operator can make the attack. The crouch action costs 1 action point, and you simply flip over your operator just like that. However, the pop-up action is a free action when crouched and allows you to immediately stand up. Additionally, you can combine the pop-up action with an attack action for a single action point. Now, you may ask yourself, well, if the pop-up action is free, why does there need to be a pop-up and attack action that costs 1 action point? Why couldn't you just pop up and then attack? And that's because you would want the pop-up and attack action as a single action to prevent Axis units from being able to react to some of the things you might do, since they can only react once you have completed an action. So if pop-up was an action, and then attack was your next action, an Axis unit, depending on the situation, might be able to do something in between those 2 actions to react to you. But since pop-up and attack is a single action, you complete that entire thing, and then an Axis unit would react if possible. The pickup action is a free action. Simply move onto or finish a sprint action on a square containing an item or object and declare you're picking it up. An object such as a corpse is placed on the operator carry space here. If it were instead an item, then it would be placed in the empty space here. An operator may only ever carry a single object at a time. When an operator is carrying an object, they only have 3 possible actions: move, place, move, and place. Placing an item or object, as you saw on the reference sheet, costs 1 action point and can be combined with a single square of movement. Simply place the object into any adjacent square, like this. This can be done before or after movement as well. To be clear, I turned the operator just because I like the idea of looking in the direction that I placed the object, but it's not strictly necessary to do that. An item or object placed into line of sight of an Axis unit will not alert them unless that object is a corpse. Items and objects can be placed over low walls, and they can be placed through windows. This can be done even if the operator remains crouched. The blind fire action enables an operator to make an attack over low cover while remaining crouched. The Axis unit will become alert, and even though the Axis unit does not see the attacker is still considered spotted. A blind fire attack has a -2 modifier, and as you can see, that is the only time an operator receives a negative modifier to an attack. The recover action costs 3 action points and is used to restore a badly wounded operator's health points. Each time the recover action is used, the operator will regain a single lost health point. But keep in mind that this symbol here indicates that is the maximum health points an operator can recover to. The break cover action is a free action in which an operator gives away their position to the enemy. During the stealth section, if an operator wishes to break cover, simply switch the operator token with the spotted token instead, and then flip the closest Axis unit to the alert side. If there were multiple Axis units the same distance away, then all of them would switch to the alert status. If an operator chooses to break cover during the battle section, then they will switch to the spotted side, but you do not flip any Axis units. Now let's talk about the Axis units seeing and hearing the operators. Anytime an Axis unit sees or hears an operator, this will cause the Axis unit to react. They will also react if they see another Axis unit killed. So for instance, if this operator stood up right here, now this Axis unit sees him. Or if this operator were here and killed this Axis unit would see that occur and would react. Anytime a loud weapon is used, meaning a weapon with an earshot greater than 0, the stealth meter will advance 1 space. Additionally, any Axis unit within earshot of the loud weapon will turn to face the direction of the shot, and their token will flip to show the alert status. this Axis unit is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away. We can see that the gun has an earshot of 6. And so this Axis unit will turn around to face the shot and will become alert. It should also be noted that if an operator uses the sprint action on a square adjacent to an Axis unit, they will become alert and turn to face the operator. So if this operator sprinted into the woods, 1, 2, 3, then this Axis unit is alert and turns to face the operator. Now, if one of these things occurs, but the Axis unit is already alert, like this one, they will still turn to face the sound of the shot. An Axis unit will always rotate in the direction that requires the least amount of turning to face in the direction of the shot or the sprinting operator. If both clockwise and counterclockwise are identical in distance, then the player gets to choose the direction that they rotate. Now let's discuss being seen. Axis units see everything within a 90-degree field of view to their front, up to 8 squares away. So for instance, if this operator came down to here, now at this point, the field of view is here. And so if we draw a straight line from here to here, we don't hit the forest. And so this operator can be seen. The Axis unit is alert. Additionally, the Axis units have peripheral vision to the immediate right and left of their position. And so if this operator moved here, then the Axis unit would become alert. It should also be noted that Axis movement is just like operator movement. They can move diagonal or orthogonal, but must always face one of the cardinal directions when they have finished their movement. All squares within an Axis unit's field and peripheral view fall under 3 categories, either fully visible, partially visible, or not visible. When determining the visibility of a square, keep in mind that Axis units who are not alert block line of sight for other Axis units. However, alert Axis units do not block line of sight. So in this situation here, an example of a visible square would be, say, one of these, visible to both Axis units, actually. If we look at this square here, it's partially visible, meaning that, for instance, a standing operator would be seen, but a crouching operator would not be seen because the hedges block line of sight to a crouching operator. Also, a corpse would not be seen. And then if this operator were here, then he would not be visible as line of sight from this officer is blocked by this Axis unit. If an Axis unit is on a space that is either visible or partially visible to another Axis unit, and this Axis unit is killed, even though the corpse is no longer visible because corpses are not visible on partially visible spaces, this Axis unit did witness the killing, and so they will become alert. Now, in this case, this Axis unit would have heard the shot and would also become alert, but let's say there was some situation here where this Axis unit did not hear a shot. When this Axis unit becomes alert, they will shout, and everyone within 4 spaces will also become alert. Now, the unit here who became alert would not also shout. It's only the person who saw the thing happen. However, everyone, again, within 4 spaces of this guy becomes alert. Also, if an operator assassinates an Axis unit, like this, and that assassination is witnessed by another Axis unit, the Axis unit will, of course, become alert, but also this operator, even though he's not in line of sight for this Axis unit, will be considered spotted. Additionally, the first time an operator carries out any sort of action within line of sight of an Axis unit, they become spotted. And that Axis unit will then shout, warning everyone within 4 squares, causing them to become alert as well. So for instance, if an Axis unit were here, they would flip to their alert side. However, when an Axis unit becomes alert due to a warning shout, they do not change their facing. And again, they do not shout a warning themselves. It should also be noted that if the action witnessed by the Axis unit results in their death. So for instance, in this case, if the action were pop up and attack, and the attack did successfully kill this Axis unit, then they would not actually shout and would not become alert, and therefore he would not be spotted. So now let's talk about reaction attacks. The first time during a turn that an operator carries out an action within the line of sight of an alert Axis unit, the Axis unit will attack them. This is called a reaction attack. It's important to realize, though, that it has to be an alert Axis unit, and they have to witness an action while alert. So, for instance, if this operator popped up first, that's an action, but this Axis unit was not alert, they now see this operator and become alert. Now, if this operator used the take aim action, at that point, the Axis unit would then react and attack with a reaction attack. It's also very important to keep in mind that an alert Axis unit will only make a single reaction attack per operator during the operator phase. So, after that initial reaction attack, this operator could then do as many other actions as they have action points for without additional reaction attacks from this particular Axis unit. But if there were multiple operators within the view of that Axis unit, the Axis unit could take a reaction attack against each of them as they performed actions. And just as before, if the action taken kills this Axis unit, he does not get to take a reaction attack. It's also possible that the action taken by the operator could result in them being out of sight at the end of their turn. So, for instance, if they use the move and attack action against this Axis unit, and they attack and then move here, that's all a single action, and the reaction attack occurs after the action is resolved, the Axis unit does still get to attack them. They would simply use the moving out of line of sight attack modifier of -2. If the stealth meter reaches the alarm during the operator phase, immediately flip every Axis unit to the alert side. They will maintain their current facing. The game has now switched to the battle section, so once the operator phase ends, the next phase would be the Axis advance phase for the battle section rather than the Axis advance phase for the stealth section. There must always be at least one operator spotted during the battle section. If at any point all spotted operators have either been killed or left the board, players must nominate another operator and change their token to the spotted version. In the battle section, once an operator is spotted, they will remain spotted for the duration of the game until they are either killed or leave the board. During the Axis advance phase during the stealth section, all alert Axis units other than officers will advance towards the spotted operators. Officers will not actually advance, they will simply turn to face the direction of the closest spotted operator. Since this is the stealth section Axis advance phase, it is possible there will be no spotted operators on the board. In that case, Axis units will maintain their position and then move as normal in the Axis patrol phase. However, if an Axis unit were on a patrol line like this, and as we said, there are no spotted operators, they will maintain their facing and not move because they're not facing the correct direction on the patrol line until an event card has them turn one way or the other to get back online. When advancing, alert Axis units have 3 priorities in order. Their top priority is to move to an optimal attack position on the closest spotted operator. Their second priority is to move to an optimal attack position on a different spotted operator. And their third priority is to move towards the closest spotted operator by the shortest possible route while maintaining line of sight on any partially visible squares containing spotted operators. So, what does that all look like in practice? If we have just a single spotted operator as we do here, this Axis unit will attempt to move. They have a movement of 4. And they'll attempt to move in such a way as to get an optimal attack position on this operator. Now, they are suffering from as few Axis attack modifiers, negative attack. Now, optimal attack position means they are suffering from as few negative axis attack modifiers as possible, and ideally would get within short range. So in this case, the axis unit can move 1, 2, 3, 4, and is now 2 spaces away from the operator. There was no way, given their starting position and their amount of movement, to get closer than 2 spaces away, so this is a optimal position based off of where they started. Now, if they started their movement here instead, then the optimal position would be here, or here, or here. All of those spots provide the same benefit for attacking this operator. Now, let's back up and say we have an additional operator on the board. This operator is still the closest, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces away, as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So closest operator is still here. However, there's no way to get a optimal firing position on this operator, while there is a way to get one on this one. So in this case, the axis unit will move 1, 2, 3, and now they are 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away, meaning they are within short range. There's no negative attack modifier, and they have an optimal firing position on this operator. And so they will actually move here to fire on him, even though this one was closer, because this one would have had negative attack modifiers because of the hedge. When determining movement for axis, keep in mind that moving over hedges or through windows will cost 2 movement points, just like it does for operators. Axis units are able to move through other axis units as long as they don't end their movement on that axis unit. And axis units will move through forests, they'll move through buildings, they'll generally move in whatever way is necessary to get that optimal firing position. Also, if there are any axis vehicles on the board, they will always move prior to any axis infantry. It should also be noted that if the alarm happens to sound during the axis advance phase for the stealth section, however, units that have already advanced during the stealth section will not advance again during this particular battle section. Now, the axis advance phase battle section is very similar to the stealth section version, with a couple of important differences. For one, the sentries will not actually advance during the battle section. They will stay on their sentry point and they will rotate looking for the nearest spotted operator. Officers, as usual, will not move. So instead, you've got your SMG units and you've got your riflemen from patrols that are moving towards the spotted operator. Additionally, you're likely to have reinforcements start showing up, and when they do, they will also begin moving towards the spotted operator. These reinforcements will move just as normal, stepping off of the initial spawn point here, moving towards the spotted operator. Keep in mind that this back row treats the front row as their first step, so that is a space just like any other space. They can even step diagonally off of this spawn point onto the board like this. When you're determining the facing of the officers and the sentries, their priority order is very similar to the priority order of advancing axis units. They'll rotate to an attack position on the closest spotted operator, then they'll rotate to an attack position on a different spotted operator if they can't get one on the closest spotted operator. And finally, they'll simply rotate to face the closest spotted operator if there's no attack position possible, no matter which way they face. Now, if you end up in a situation where there are no axis units available to advance on the operator at all, at that point the sentries will then step off of their sentry point and begin advancing on the operator. And as usual, if there are any axis unit vehicles on the board, they will move prior to the axis infantry. Next is the event phase. This is also a little different depending on if it's the stealth or battle section, so we'll cover the stealth section first. Flip over the top event card, place the patrol token in the appropriate space. For the first round of the game, the patrol token will always be black side up. For every round after that, it will flip to the opposite side. So white, and then black, and so on throughout the rounds. If you ever reach the end of the event deck, shuffle the discard pile to create a new deck. Every event card shows a stealth side and a battle side. In the stealth section, you only refer to this side. During the battle section, you only refer to this side. During the stealth section, there are 5 different possible types of panels that you'll see in the stealth side of the card. This is referred to as a black or white, in this case white, sentry rotate. All sentries of the indicated color will rotate the indicated direction on the card. In this case, counterclockwise. So you find a white sentry, as you see here, and you turn them, and there is no arrow pointing this direction, so they keep turning, and now they're facing this arrow. A sentry must always be facing an arrow when they finish their rotation. This event is the black or white patrol rotate. So previously we saw a sentry rotate. Now it's referring specifically to the patrols. All patrolmen on the matching color line will rotate in the direction indicated. So in this case, clockwise. They always must be facing the patrol line. So generally this means they'll be rotating 180 degrees, but of course if they are on a corner like this, they could rotate a different amount. It is important they rotate in the correct direction, as this could determine whether or not they catch line of sight on an operator. In either the case of the patrolman rotating or the sentry rotating, if they do catch line of sight on an operator, they will stop mid-rotation, whether they are facing the direction of a line or not. They will stop, they will flip to the alert side, and they will shout, alerting all other Axis units within 4 spaces. Any Axis unit alerted by a warning shout will flip to the alert status as well, but will maintain their current facing, and they themselves will not shout. And of course, if an operator is spotted, you replace their token with the spotted version of their token. The spawn event indicates you should place a number of SMG infantry units on the relevant spawn tile. In this case, 2. You'd always place them in the spaces closest to the board. If this spawn tile happens to already be full, then you would simply ignore this event. Also, it's very important to realize that Axis units on the spawn tile don't do anything until the alarm is triggered, so they ignore line of sight and all of that. The alarm advance event simply means you move the alarm 1 space closer to 0. When the cigarette break event takes place, take the cigarette token and place it on an operator board of the player's choice. This token can be used at any point during the operator phase and is held in the operator's equipment until they wish to use it. When they use it, they nominate a non-alert Axis unit and place the cigarette token on them. This unit has paused to light a cigarette. The unit with the cigarette token on it will have no line of sight and will not move or rotate this turn. The token will be discarded during the end phase. It should be noted that even on a cigarette break, an Axis unit will flip to the alert side if they hear a warning shout. Also, loud weapons and the alarm being triggered will cause this to occur as well. In these cases, the cigarette token is immediately discarded. If the cigarette break event is drawn and the cigarette token is already on an operator's board, then nothing happens. During the battle section, there are only 2 different events that you'll see. The black or white sentry sweep. This causes all sentries without an operator within their line of sight who are still on sentry points and that match this color, so in this case the black sentries, to rotate 360 degrees in the direction shown. This means they will always return to their starting facing. If during that rotation the sentry gains line of sight on an operator, they will of course stop, and that operator will be spotted if they are not already spotted. And that operator will be spotted. The other event type is the spawn units, which operates essentially the same as the one you saw during the stealth section. Finally, let's discuss the special event card. Some missions have an event window detailed on the mission page. The event window information shows where this special event card should be placed inside the event deck. For example, a mission window might say 16/8. In that case, the player will shuffle the event deck, of course, and then they will split it into 3 decks. First, a 16-card deck, then an 8-card deck, and then the rest of the deck. The special event card is shuffled into the stack of 8 cards. That stack, which now contains the special event card, is placed on top of the rest of the deck, which was the 3rd stack, and then the original 16 cards are placed on top of that. The next phase is the Axis Patrol phase, which only occurs during the stealth section. During this phase, all Axis units on patrol lines matching this token will move 4 squares. They will always follow their patrol lines and move in the direction they're currently facing. Always move the patrolmen that are closest to the operators. When a rifleman moves, so 1, 2, 3, 4, the riflemen will always end their movement facing the next space they're going to move into. Patrolmen can move through squares occupied by other units, including vehicles, but they must be able to finish their turn on an unoccupied space. As usual, any patrol vehicles will move prior to patrol infantry. If at any point during their movement a patrolman gains line of sight to an enemy, so maybe there was an enemy in this direction, they will stop and flip to the alert side. They will, of course, then shout a warning, and any Axis units within 4 squares will also become alert, but not shout a warning themselves. Now, if you remember from our talk about line of sight, a operator and a Axis unit cannot see each other through a door. There is no line of sight through a door. However, if a Axis unit is trying to come through a door and can't because the door is blocked by an operator, then they will become alert. And even though they don't see this operator, they know they're there. And so that operator is now considered spotted as well. Next is the Axis attack phase. During this phase, every Axis unit in a position to make an attack on an operator will do so. Using the Axis statistics found here on the reference guide, you will determine the number of attack dice an Axis unit must roll and the number they must roll equal to or greater than to be successful. Every single successful roll results in the loss of 1 health point from the operator. Very important to keep in mind all of the possible Axis attack modifiers, and as a reminder again, you can find all of them right here. Most attack modifiers for Axis are going to be negative, though short range does give them +1. So in this case, all 3 SMG units have clear line of sight. Since this operator is not crouching, there is no benefit to the hedge, so there's no -1 penalty for soft cover, and he also could have gotten that -1 penalty to the SMG units if he had been adjacent to the soft cover, but again, he's not. And so each of these SMG units would roll 2 dice, with each die roll needing to be a 4 for a hit. In situations like this, it's important to remember that Axis units who are alert do not block line of sight or cause any sort of penalty when firing on an operator. It's also important to remember that each Axis unit will only attack a single operator during the Axis attack phase. So, for instance, if this operator is over here, they're not going to take a shot on him and then take a shot on him. They will only shoot him since he's the closest and has the clear line of sight. If 2 operators were equally optimal, so for instance, if this operator were here, and so now both of them are short range, then the players can choose which one is getting shot at. After you resolve the Axis attack phase, you enter the end phase. During the end phase, if there is an alert Axis unit, a spotted operator, or Willie's Jeep is on the board, then you'll advance the stealth meter 1 space. If there are spotted operators on the board, but no alert Axis units, then after advancing the stealth meter 1 space, remove the spotted tokens and replace them with their non-spotted tokens. If a corpse token is inside of a building or inside of a forest, it is removed from the board at this point. Any blast templates that are currently on the board are removed from play. If a target marker is still on the board, it should be removed from play at this point. If a target marker is still on the board, remove it from the board and place it back on the corresponding operator board. And if the cigarette token is on the board, remove it from play. No matter what, during the end phase, it's important to remember the stealth meter only can move one space maximum. It doesn't matter what the board situation is, one space maximum. The end phase for the battle section is much shorter, less involved. Corpse tokens are still removed from play if they're in a building or in a forest. Then you remove bomb and fuel barrel blast templates from play. You remove the target marker from the board and place it back on the operator board. And that is it. During the battle section, spotted operators are never replaced with their regular tokens. And that is part 2 of our How to Play SAS Rogue Regiment series. We will be back with part 3, which is just going to cover the Axis vehicles, Axis units, and we'll look into the objects and equipment a little bit as well, most likely. Just kind of touching on it, maybe not going through everything in detail there. And then the operator vehicles, we'll look at those. So honestly though, at this point, with the information you have, you can go ahead and get started playing the game. You will probably want to reference a couple things on operator objects and equipment, but for the most part, you can start playing the first couple of scenarios without any issue. Thank you so much for watching this. Be sure to come back for the final part in this series. We've also got our continued Dungeon Universalis series, as well as our continued Kingdom Death Monsters Gamblers Chess Expansion series. And until next time, if you're bored online, board offline.